Thanks very much for the introduction, and thanks to you and Hazel for making these meetings happen. I just wanted to say hi to everybody, first of all. Hope that you and all your loved ones are keeping safe and well. We kind of recognise here in the cluster how lockdown and COVID-19 is having a massively different effect on people, both sort of personally and through sort of business and work and employment. So just within all of that, we genuinely appreciate the time that you take out to engage with us. It's probably more important now than it's ever been before. So thanks for your continued support. We've got a really good lineup this morning, starting off with Martin Chown, the CEO of Sellafield. I believe it's the first time that Martin's sort of publicly engaged in his new guise as CEO, and really interested to hear what Martin has to share with us. I mean, it's incredible really to take on what is already a big role and to take it on at the start of a global pandemic, the scale of which we're currently through. I think I'd just like to say on behalf of all the cluster that the feedback in the way that Sellafield has handled itself and how it's engaged with the supply chain through this process has been nothing less than exemplary. So a massive thank you to Martin and to your team. We've also got the famed 3x3s. So really looking forward to hearing more from our good friends at A Digital and Bespoke Minds, and a company name that I can never say properly, so I apologise. PWhytek, PWhytek. I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more and actually learning how to say the company name, and then networking, member news, and AOB. So a really good lineup, and I won't hold us up anymore. I'll now hand over to Martin and welcome him to the floor.
First of all, well, my personal welcome to the meeting as well. I'm delighted to be able to join you all today, albeit in a virtual environment. I hope we can be face together sometime in the future. It is my first real, if you want, public engagement as CEO. I started on the 2nd of February, and the first 6 weeks went very well. And since then, it's been a little bit more challenging, but I'll come on to that. So delighted to be here. And I suppose looking back, and most of today's conversations can be about looking forwards and where we are now. But looking back, thanks to all of you in the cluster who supported me as the supply chain director. I'm now obviously the CEO, which is a different and unique challenge for me. And it's important that we kind of work with that delineation. But I'm delighted to be here as the CEO. And thank you all for your support in the last 4 years as I was the supply chain director. I think we did some really interesting work and lots more we can do in the future. I think my commitment to a more open Sellafield has really started to take shape. And I think that we are in a much better place than we were, but I still think we've got some way to go. So what I'd like to share with you this morning is where we are now as we sit here on this meeting date to go through our position as the site. My priorities, I'll cover those really briefly. They're the same as I share internally with our board, with our employees and everybody, one message for everybody. And then just a few personal messages from me about how I think you can contribute and what we can do. So first of all, where's Sellafield now? We started our shutdown of Sellafield on the 17th of March. And we closed down Magnox, first of all, which is our big chemical separation plant. And then we closed down the rest of the operations on that Sunday afternoon, which I think was the 21st or the 22nd of March. And so we've been closed down there for about 11 weeks. The first close down of that was really, our priority was only really on protecting our workers, so protecting our community, whilst making sure the site remains safe and secure. So we went down to about 750 people on site, which for us is exceptionally low. Normally we'll have about 12 to 14,000 workers on site any given day. So it's a significant and very quick close down of Sellafield site. But I took that decision to protect our people and to protect the communities. And we then stayed in that place, safe and secure, and watched as the pandemic developed and where things were going in the communities. And we then started our restart, if you like, around the end of April. We took some decisions around which operations we would restart, and it's a phased restart across the whole Sellafield site. So we have been ramping up facilities now all through May and into June, and will continue to do so now. Our restart is based on high hazard, so where we really need to make progress. And so those of you who know the site, the ponds, the silos and other areas were our first areas. But more but also the major projects that support those. So the major projects in the future that will support those, we restarted those. They were some of the first to go into that. What we did was learn how to work again, I suppose, and we looked at how we can get workplace distancing on our operations, both in nuclear operations and construction sites. And we've reconfigured most of our work areas, our change rooms and all of that, to allow people to work safely. If you have people who come onto site, it's really important that when they do come back onto site, they re-familiarise themselves. It will help you to do that as people start to re-enter site, because it is a different place now than it was in February, March time, and the arrangements are quite different to where they were. Even the arrangements to how we run security and how we come through the gates and how we change ready for work. So it is quite different, and people need to have some time to re-familiarise themselves with how we're working. We're into what we call phase 3 of our restart now, and we have 51 operations that we set out of phase 3. And as we sit here this morning, we have 38 of those under restart. Some of those are largely operational, some of those are still in the early days, but we are, as you can tell, a good way through phase 3 of our restart. Phase 6, if you just want a reference point, is where we were before COVID. That's normal operations at Sellafield, with everything being busy and running the way it should. So we are progressing well. We started off starting facility by facility, and that was the right thing to do, and assessing each facility in time. We've now gone into a wider restart where we've established ways of working and lots of people coming back on site. We have about 2,000 cars now coming on site per day, and all of the activities, the nuclear operations and major projects, are starting to run. We have supply chain working with us on site, and I've met some of them. I've met some Alpha BT people working on BECBC, and I met some CAFA people who were working on one of our ponds, and one of the facilities on ponds. So we are having more and more supply chain people coming back on site, and that will continue. We have shared our ramp-up plans with the supply chain, and we will be planning on ramping up to get to kind of a good efficiency productivity level during July, August and into September, and restarting some of our more difficult, complex facilities like Magnox during that time frame. So we're planning for that now. That's not a long way off, that's weeks off, rather than months off. So that's the kind of way that Sellafield is restarting. A difficult time for us, and not something I would have clearly wanted coming in, but you have to deal with the cards that you're dealt, and these are the cards that I was dealt, and I hope you believe, and I believe we've dealt with it very well, and protecting our workforce and the communities is our first priority. I'll come on to my priorities, and these are the immediate priorities. They're not the full set. I have some work to do to focus on our leadership at Sellafield site, and I want to encourage all our leaders to step up and have that visible leadership, and I hope that the supply chain can feel that you're part of that as well, and our leaders are more engaging and the better at how they're equipped to carry out their work. So that is one of my focuses. Project performance, major project performance is a second one of those, and we have to get better and more predictable about how we deliver the significant workload of major projects at Sellafield site. Employee, union and supply chain communications is the third. So how we engage with the wider groups, our own people, but everyone on the call today, and indeed the unions as well. It's really important that everyone feels like they're engaged and they're part of what we do. The next group on from that, the fourth, is our stakeholder confidence. Our stakeholders award the money to Sellafield, which is a significant amount of money that we need to run the site every year. It's important they've got the confidence for the long-term future of all the jobs and all the security of what we have to do. And so stakeholder confidence is the fourth, and you won't be surprised that the fifth, but in not any order, is conventional nuclear safety. We run a large complex site, and some of the facilities are very old, and looking after the safety of our environment and our workers is absolutely paramount to what we do. So they are the immediate priorities. There's more to come. There's more around the environment to come. There's more around the community to come. But they were months of priorities and not years of priorities. So I'd ask you to kind of take it in that context. A few messages from me, and I'll close. I don't speak forever, so hopefully I'll keep it fairly short in the messages for you today. We have a changing mission at Sellafield, but it's a long-term mission, and it's not a declining mission. So sometimes people say, is Sellafield in decline? And yes, it is, theoretically. That decline is almost incremental and almost flatline. It's such a shallow decline in terms of what we do, in terms of money, in terms of jobs, in terms of people. So we are stopping reprocessing the Sellafield site, and that's a significant change. But even with both reprocessing facilities, and I can see one of them outside my window as I sit here at Sellafield today, both of them running Thorpe and Magnox was only ever about 23% of what we did. And it seems like people hold that as a very large percentage of what we do, but it is significant, but it's not the most significant operation that we have. So the three big hotspot areas that you should know and engage with is bulk retrievals, as we start to move into a complex engineering mission on bulk retrievals, running at least for the next 2 decades, taking material up ponds and silos, and then decommissioning the ponds and silos will be a big focus of what we do, a major industrial operation in itself. Repackaging, there's a large building going up just near one of the main areas on site, and we are looking at how we repackage some material in that building as well as in other buildings as well. And that's a big, significant industrial operation, which again has at least 2 decades in the running. And then capital build. So the site just before lockdown was becoming much busier in terms of all the construction going on site and the construction workforce on site. We're up to about 5,000 workers on site, and with PPP that will continue. We have a very large capital build going forward for at least the next 20 years. So 7.5 billion spend in plan, and some other spend that's kind of in my vision that's not in plan as well. So that could even be more than that. But you put us next to the Tideway in London, Crossrail, all of those kind of infrastructure, Heathrow, and we are a significant infrastructure construction player in our own right, as well as a complex nuclear site. Supply chain is vital to that. So my second message is about supply chain, and most of our money that we get, we don't spend at Sellafield, we spend back out with our supply chain. It's about 1.2 billion. So it's really important. We took some steps to protect our supply chain. We immediately shipped to immediate payment terms so people can get their money really quick. And we did that literally the day after we closed the operations at site, so ahead of others and ahead of where we should be, really. But we did it to protect our supply chain. We paid out £28 million of support payments in the first 2 months, and that will be already more than that. I anticipate that will be 35 to 40 as we sit here today. I don't know the exact number, but that number is slightly old to support our supply chain during these difficult times. We've shared our restart plans. We have had some delays to procurements, and we're restarting those procurements. Some have continued. We have 3 link challenges out there at the minute, so that's continued. And we have supplier engagement days via Zoom in July to restart new procurements as well that are not even there yet for some engineered products that we need to buy in, and some significant values of products. So trying to keep the money flowing, the procurements flowing from Sellafield into the supply chain, but there have been some delays, and I want those delays to be weeks and not months. Last couple of asks for me to you all, really. I'd ask you to, everyone's got views of Sellafield, and I hear them often, as you would expect, and I would ask you to be cognizant of those, look to the past, but don't dwell on it, and what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be reacting and working in the future is different to what we've done in the past. So I do genuinely believe that. So the past is interesting, but it's not where we're necessarily going and not necessarily how we're working. I'd see a positive change, and I'm already seeing some of that now. So even during the difficult times in terms of engaging with people, I'm already seeing some positive change, although it's not at the level I'd want by now, but it is going to continue into the future. Definitely keen on your ideas and innovation. Most of the innovation at Sellafield comes from the supply chain, so definitely ask you to bring that. And the last one really is a slightly different one from me. Most of that has been a fairly work-orientated talk. And the last one from me is about being kind and respectful to each other. So I think genuinely people in the cluster are, and I've been welcomed. You can obviously tell I'm not from Cumbria myself, although I do live in the Northwest. But I've always found a really strong welcome, a good welcome from everybody that I've met up here. And I think part of that is how we treat each other and how we're kind and respectful to each other. And if there's a positive coming out of COVID, and I do believe there are some, then I hope that's one that's even there stronger. And it is part of my mantra that I speak to everybody about how we behave at Sellafield and what we do. And the supply chain are equals to our employees, the people that work with us now, our catering staff, our technical engineering supply chain, the people that work and clean the offices, our security personnel. Everybody for me is of equal stature, and I'd ask you to continue in that mantra. that was really it as my messages for you today. I hope you found that interesting. It was a personal message for me about where we are and what we're doing. And I'm open to answering any questions. I don't know if we have any yet that have been submitted that you wanted to ask.
We do indeed, Martin. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. So the first question is an anonymous one, actually, but I'll read it out to you. Elements of the Sellafield supply chain that provide goods have been impacted by COVID-19 due to the halt of site works and subsequent postponement of associated procurement requirements. Many of these procurement of goods support key risk reduction projects. Has Sellafield discussed, considered, and what plans have been put in place to ensure that Sellafield supply chain companies remain in place and are available to support Sellafield's high priority risk and hazard reduction projects? What communications has Sellafield had in particular with SME suppliers who supply direct to Sellafield or via Tier 2 organisations to check if they are still functioning and will still be available to support Sellafield as the site returns to operations?
That's a long question.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry, that's fine. I did get it. I was just kind of thinking about the answer. Yeah, having the supply chain to come back to is absolutely vital. And we have clearly, with the reduced operations, we're not taking as much material onto site as we used to. That said, last Monday, for the first time, we had a significant queue of vehicles trying to get through to main gates. And so that was the first time since lockdown that we had that. And quite a significant part of that was supplier vehicles trying to get on site. So we are seeing a return to work, both from our supply chain, the goods and services that are coming on. We've asked our Tier 2s, our Tier 1, so we send our money through our Tier 1 direct supply base. We put a specific clause in the payments that we've made to them to oblige them to look after the other tiers in the supply chain. So whether you're a direct supplier or not, we expect them to take care of other tiers in the supply chain. And if they're not direct relationships with SMEs, which we look after ourselves, then we expect our Tier 1 suppliers to be able to do that. So we have made definite steps to do it. But I do recognise that there has been a couple of months at least of reduced demand. We're going to try and get back to work as soon as we can to limit the damage that we've got to Sellafield site, limit the damage economically for our supply chains, and we can all return to work. I think it's just a better place for everyone to be, and we can lead us out of the COVID. As the big, large industrial site in the area, I think we've got a responsibility to do that for everyone.
All right, thank you. So many of the local SMEs did not qualify from the government support in grants or rate relief, etc. And the message I'm picking up from our local SMEs is that the local supply chain needs Sellafield and the Tier 1 and 2 to commence issuing new inquiries as soon as they can do safely without any further delay so the local economy can kickstart again. Now, it's maybe not so much a question, but more an observation. Don't know if, Martin, you have a view on that.
Yeah, I do. And I think I've covered some of that already. We are issuing inquiries back out to our supply chain. There has been a pause in it, so I'm not going to deny that. There wasn't some weeks where that kind of took a bit of a lag. It's really important for us and for you that we get straight back on with that. And I'm really pleased with the innovation that's carried out and launching 2 large procurements. And I'm trying to think of the value of those. There'll certainly be probably one will be about 50-60 million for the containers, and the other one will probably be a lot more than that, actually, both engineering bias. So how we engage the supply chain, how we continue to launch our procurements, keeping that money flowing, but keeping the long-term order books in place is really important. We might see, as we come back to work, an increase in that and a bit of a hockey stick effect as we start to catch up with the work we're doing. So during July, August, you might see much more of that coming out than perhaps you normally would.
Okay, I'm going to come to Diane. Diane Richardson, you have a question.
Morning, Martin. I'd like to say thank you first, because undoubtedly the communication from Sellafield has been clear and timely, and Sellafield has provided a buffer to West Cumbria that we're very aware of around here, I think. You know, my question is going to be on social impact. So we do have a problem where people see social impact as being communities. And I know you mentioned communities was one of your longer term priorities. But I am aware there has been a reaction that social impact was all about Paul Foster being local and was driven by him. So I wondered if you could give us your feeling around social impact for Sellafield. I mean, for me, it's embedded through the priorities that you mentioned, but I think it's important we hear what your view of it is, and fair warning, I'm going to quote it to a few people as well.
That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. So it is something I've always been committed to, and actually sustainability as well. So I've served on social impact boards before this, and I used to be a board member of a supply chain sustainability group as well, which included social impact. So it's not just a Sellafield commitment. It's something I personally have always been interested in. And I think, you know Aaron as well, don't you? And I've always got Aaron, a former colleague that I work with as well, to help me lead us forward in that journey. Alan's the person that leads that for Balfour Beatty, so he's one of the people that used to work alongside me. So I think we've got a choice. You know, we could spend 1.2 billion with the supply chain, and we could pay 800 million pounds worth of wages, which is largely what we do. And we could do that in a way that doesn't really leave an ongoing footprint in our communities that we work in, both, you know, not just Cumbria, Warrington, but the whole of the UK. And largely the Sellafield spend goes into the UK. The vast majority, of well over 90%, lands in the UK. Or we could do that in a way that delivers a really good multiplier in terms of social impact, and we can make sure every single pound of that makes a meaningful impact. So it's not just about the 10 million pounds we give a year to the kind of the benefits that are immediately obvious, that we've invested in schools, we've invested in other worthy causes. It's about every single pound that we spend and making sure that that goes into communities and that people then use that money wisely. I think that's more impactful actually than the 10 million pounds. The 10 million pounds is really important, don't get me wrong, but I think what we do every day with all of our money as employees, as spending in the area, can do more than the 10 million that we invest directly. So it is a personal commitment of mine, and I don't like it when I see a society that's got quite a difference in inequality in terms of what we have, and I think we do have some of that. I think we have quite a lot of that actually in Cumbria, and it's something as a large employer, as many of you on the call are small employers, it's something we can all do something about if we put our shoulder behind it.
Thank you, that's brilliant.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to come to Lucy Harrison.
Thank you, Andrew, and good morning, Martin. I was interested in you saying you're wanting to ask your senior leaders to step up, and just interested in how do you think you're going to achieve that, and how will you know whether they are? And this is coming from a particular position that we've been running a program called Step Up for some of your leaders anyway, but I'm just interested particularly with the senior leadership, how are you going to know and how are you going to achieve that?
How we're going to achieve it, that's a brilliant question. Some of it will be really tangible and we can measure that. Some of that will be the feedback, the engagement that we get back from our workforce. We've got a really complex site here, and we have also then made it even more complex as our leadership group. So not only is it complex, we've then added to that with layers and layers and layers of complexity as we've tried to engage our workforce. We have to then be a lot clearer and drive that clarity and simplicity about what we're doing and why we're doing it. You can explain what Sellafield does if you have to in less than 60 seconds. So I think we've lost a bit of connection with our workforce, and I think we've lost the engagement with our workforce, and not just our workforce, but other people around us as well. So we're going to be very clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it. I'm a great believer in visible leadership. I haven't been on plant this week, but I've been on plant every other week since I've been up here. And I'm a great believer that showing what we're doing, giving that real clarity about why we're here, and then delivering on that by engaging directly with people is the solution to that engagement, that visible leadership. I believe we've had an area of our workforce that's been disconnected. So I've tried to do it by launching some awful videos of myself giving those messages out to people, which I do every couple of weeks, which some people watch and some people don't. But we do need to get that real walk and talk in terms of leadership. We will start to measure it. We will start to see that engagement going up. And when I said I've started to see some positives already, we've just seen a bit of untapped potential in Sellafield, with some people coming in and saying, oh, wow, this feels different, this feels new. How can I engage? How can I help? How can I get involved in the leadership standard? How can I get engaged in what we're trying to do here? And just turning that dial a little bit, some people have just really started to engage and be part of that. So I think we've got a way to go. I'm not deluding myself that this is going to be easy. at Sellafield. It's got a long history and it's a very large site. But I do think being clear and being honest and being more engaging is the first part, which we can then use as a platform to build on in the future. But I can't do 15 things because they won't land. I can only do 3 or 4.
Martin, Kath Howard here from BEP. The question I wanted to ask was, first of all, was to say thank you for the support to communities by keeping jobs on and paying supply chain during COVID. I think that has been a massive help to employment within communities. But my question is really about the likely increase in mental health issues that will be emerging among young people, employed people, both in Sellafield and outside, and the unemployed. And I wondered what Sellafield was planning to do or doing already directly to help people around that mental health issues going forward.
We have done quite a lot already, and we've introduced all our mental health champions. We've done some more basic things like making sure that every employee gets regularly contacted through this time. And I believe the mental health issue is quite a significant one. And some people have been very comfortable in using formats like this, and they've been quite happy if they're working from home and they've got the right environment to kind of support that. I'm really aware that that's not the case for everybody, and for some people this has been exceptionally hard, and having the whole sea change to their world turned upside down in a very short space of time has been exceptionally difficult. And for people that are in more difficult times, more difficult circumstances, then that must have been really, really hard. So we are trying to make sure we reach out. We are trying to make sure that we give all the support that we can. We have a really strong network of mental health supporters. It's not led by the leadership team at Sellafield. It's led by all of the employees at Sellafield. We are putting that in place, and we have put that into place. We've changed that messaging to a more online format during this COVID times. I think as we return to work, we need to be re-engaging our employees again and checking in with people more and making sure they're all okay. I think during the early part of COVID, most people were fine. As it's gone on for a lot longer than perhaps we thought and definitely hoped it would, I think it's become harder and harder for some people in society to be able to engage. If there's any ideas that people got, or you see us and you think about, Sellafield's doing well at this, but they're not doing so well at this, I'm personally interested to any views about what we could do better.
All right, thank you. We have just a couple more questions. Sean Beattie, I'll come to you next. There we go.
Morning, Martin. Yeah, there's the unmute issue again. Thanks again for coming along and facing the plethora of faces on this meeting. Mine's a slightly longer term, more strategic question. Given the current economic context, how do you think the NDA estate is going to fare in the next comprehensive spending review?
So, when I spoke about our stakeholder engagement and our senior stakeholder engagement, it's really important that we carry that out in the way that we emphasise what we're here for, and that people understand the priority of our mission, which generally they do actually. So I believe that we should keep doing well as part of the returns. We've done exceptionally well in the past. We've gone up from 1.5, 1.9 to 2.15. We've got a bigger budget this year than we've ever had at Sellafield. That said, the country is going to be in a real unprecedented times for the financial security of where we're going for the long term, as you say. And so we have to make sure that we don't waste any of that money, and every single pound is spent wisely and we get value for money from that pound. So I think there's a renewed emphasis on being more responsible with that money and making sure we progress high hazard. We can be part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem here in terms of funding settlement for the NDA, and specifically for Sellafield. Because if we go back to the earlier question of spending that money protecting jobs, not impacting the societies we're in, jobs in the north, communities, and being part of that success and delivering our mission really well and accelerating our mission, then I believe we should be successful in protecting funding settlements for the future. But undoubtedly, there's going to be immense pressure. There just has to be.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dick Monaghan, you did ask a question. I think that's probably been answered by that last response from Martin. So we had one question which came in just after the threshold, but in the interest of trying to keep everyone, get everyone's questions through, the last question came from Mark Goodwin. So Mark, if you want to unmute yourself, and you can put that question directly to Martin. Are you there, Mark? No, well, I'll ask that question for you anyway. Is there a collective view on the supply chain response to PPN 04/20 and how this could be used to inform future changes?
So, for those that don't know what that is the support payment PPN. PPN is a procurement policy notice that comes out of Cabinet Office. And it's interesting because even before the PPN was issued, I'd already drawn up plans to do effectively what the PPN then came out to say what we could do. So already acting alone as Sellafield, myself and the finance director had already put some plans in place to pay and protect our supply chain. The PPN arrived, which then enabled us to do that across government in more or less the same way as we were going to do anyway, so really helpful. The latest iteration of that has made that slightly more focused, and we need to now continue to use the PPN, pay for critical suppliers where we will do, and as I said, we've made at least 28 million, probably more like 35 as we sit here today, so we are using it well and effectively. But we need to then ramp down the PPN support money, the support payments to our supply chain, and ramp up the work and get people back to delivering work and being paid at the same time. So that's the phase that we're into now. I suppose I should have said it at the start, but we were and we have been in a crisis management team organisation since the start of COVID. We're not even going to run it as a crisis management team. It's now, as far as we're concerned, a recovery operation. So that's part of that. But getting people back onto work and delivering progress is a much better place to be than paying support payments to suppliers. And I'm sure that's the way you'd prefer it to be as well, doing meaningful work.
All right, thank you, Martin. Time is up, I'm afraid, everybody. So thank you for putting those questions. If there are further questions that we have not got round to, that I haven't brought you into the conversation on, then please do submit them in the chat, and I'm sure we can find a way to get them through to Martin and get a response. But I suspect we might have covered most things there. So thank you very much, Martin. Really appreciate your time on behalf of the cluster. And you've obviously got plenty on your plate and lots of challenges in front of you. So wish you all the best, and appreciate your time for joining us again today.
Thanks for listening. See you all in better times. Cheers.
Okay, so moving on, we are going into 3x3s. It seems that I'm up first in alphabetical order. So there's myself. We've got we've got three 3-minute presentations. Diane has already posted in the chat that her timer is at the ready. Let me just rearrange a few things on my screen after that, and
I'll give you a very nice countdown, Andrea.
Okay, so I'll get cracking.
Don't make me miss my countdown. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
So nice to be on the other side of this. So good morning, everyone. As you know, my name's Andrew Armitage, and I'm the founder and owner of A Digital. And we exist to solve the problems that companies face as they recognise the need to grow their digital channels and put them at the heart of their growth strategy. We do this with websites, content, search, social media and email. But crucially, we also integrate business process with technology that supports sales growth, provide a positive user experience and make processes more efficient. We typically work with companies that have a turnover between 1 million and 100 million, and you can see we've got some well-respected clients that we've worked with over recent years. Last year, we did a project for James Cropper plc where we amalgamated several of their websites into a single site that included a live feed from the London Stock Exchange. We also produced a new website for well-known Hawkshead Relish last year, and that picked up an award late last year, in fact. And that site has seen a 140% increase in transactions since that site went live, with an 80% increase in conversion rate compared to the previous 12 months. We've also worked with Windermere Lake Cruises for the best part of 10 years now, building their online timetable and booking system, and really excited that we've been able to adapt their online booking to accommodate the new social distancing rules, and that will be rolled out over the coming week that will allow them to operate safely again from the 4th of July. Now, over recent months, it's probably become plain to see for everybody that digital is no longer an option, but there are three common mistakes that we see people making. First of all, that digital is not just about your website or doing social media. It has to be much broader than this. And this process of digital transformation, it's not just about introducing a paperless office or introducing new technology. It's about changing the culture within an organization and how it works on your customers' terms, meeting them wherever they are on their buying journey. And finally, the idea that digital is never actually done. It has to be a never-ending evolution, learning and adapting as time goes on. And our vision for our clients is to enable them to have a great digital business. Digital experience is the new loyalty, and our plan when we work with clients is something that can help them to get there. We've had some fantastic feedback from our clients, able to demonstrate that we've hit the ground running, delivering an immediate benefit, working with them. This review taken from something that a client left us just the other day. We also have a podcast called the Client Side Podcast, with recent conversations have included the importance of branding, getting the most out of LinkedIn, and an interview on doing video presentations like this with a former Hollywood actor. That's available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So do look that out, look that up if you get a chance. We have a few
your 3 minutes is
quick
up,
planning guides. There you go on screen. So if you want to find out,
try and run over your 3 minutes. Just because I'm at a distance.
So there we go. There's a few links on screen. Thank you very much, Diane. Right, who have we got next? We have Bespoke Bids. Let me stop sharing my screen.
You fit a lot into that, Andrew. It just shows what you can fit into 3 minutes. Very good messaging as well. Enjoyed that.
Right, who have we got next? Oh, I've got things all over my screen. I've lost my thread now.
Is it me next?
It is. There we go. Thank you for helping me out.
Welcome,
Okay,
David.
Right.
Are you sharing, or are you? There we go.
Hopefully I'm sharing. I've got a strong act to follow there, Andrew.
You have, haven't you? We'll wait till it appears.
Yeah, so
there we go. Your presentation's up, so I'll give you your countdown. 3,
excellent.
2, 1, start.
Good. I'm Dave Jones, Operations Director at Bespoke Bids. Thanks for the opportunity of letting me talk to you today. I'd like to start talking about how to lose a bid. As Bespoke Bids, we've been surveying procurement teams and commissioners, both public and private sector, keeping it anonymous to get the maximum candor to find out their views on what makes a bad bid and what could spoil your chance of success. There's a lot of info we've captured, and we've split these into 7 major categories. So just sharing a few examples from this survey, noting some of these will disqualify you from bid, others will just put you on the back foot from the start. So number 1, not follow options. Read them, just ignore them. For example, replacing the pricing schedule with your own price sheet. Number 2, bad writing and formatting, including waffling, lead and prose, stock phrases, or poor or over creative formatting. 3, no substance, not answering the question, no supporting evidence, or trying to shoehorn something irrelevant into the answer. 4, poor option, lack of planning, everything left to the last minute and it shows, and not asking for help when needed. 5, low energy, clearly not put the effort in, e.g. using stock phrases and filler text, or no passion in the answers. 6, arrogance, overconfidence, lazy, wasting pages, talking about yourselves too much. And finally, 7, there's that catch-all category, just the collection of silly mistakes, such as uploading the wrong draft document or just forgetting stuff. We'll be making this also with obviously it's got much more detail in, so feel free to contact us and we can share it with you. At Bespoke Bids, we want to learning through feedback such as this exercise, also from every client engagement, so we can continuously improve our processes and help deliver quality winning bids. We also, as part of the process, like to upskill our clients in each engagement. So we don't just take away stuff, we work collaboratively. We're honest. For example, if you have no chance in the bid or you need to learn or change, we'll raise it and we'll discuss it with you. So we're both better positioned for bids. The Bespoke Bid services include bid writing, end-to-end bid management, bid consultancy. This can include bid readiness, for example, getting a customer new to bidding, bid ready, or getting a more experienced customer ready, so getting the strategy and plan ready for that must-win or key strategic bid. We also do training, bid masterclass, doing that online, through to bespoke bid workshops. At Bespoke Bids, we're a team of bid consultants. We're all in-house permanent staff. We've worked with clients across most industry sectors. Our team have also delivered hundreds of successful bids into the UK civil nuclear sector, and hence have good knowledge of the many buyers in this industry. So just to finish off, please get in touch if there's anything at all we can do to help. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
2 minutes 55 seconds, David. Well done. You fit a ton into there. I love
Brilliant.
that piece about turning it around, saying how to do a bad bid. And I think that's a really good way of getting people to think about it. Very good presentation. Wow, we've had 2 great ones this morning, haven't we? No pressure on number 3.
Okay, and number 3 is James Miller. So there you go, James. You're live now.
Right.
Are you ready, James? Are you sharing, or are you?
Yeah.
We'll wait for your slides to appear then before I give you.
Is that coming through?
That's on now. Yeah, you just need to click into your slideshow and that'll give us perfect. Okay. Are you ready?
I'll let you set us off rather than me presuming when to set off.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, my name's James Miller. I work for a company called PWhytek. We're a design for manufacture specialist company based in Stockport in the Northwest. Our heritage is in aerospace design and manufacturing, and we offer full lifecycle engineering services from concept through to manufacture. We're an innovative SME. We've got a team of 30 and a turnover of circa 2.5 million currently. So we're recognised specialists in mechanical engineering, design checking and design for manufacture. We're also specialists in geometrical dimensioning and tolerancing to ISO, GPS and BS Quad 8 standards, which helps us to minimise costs, increase productivity and ensure quality on projects. We're currently supporting multiple Sellafield programmes by the Design Services Alliance. We're doing manufacturing studies for Magnox, providing mechanical engineering services to AWE, and we're doing a large submarine tooling and manufacturing program as well, which is based out of this site, which we're part owners in, which is a company called API Design and Build in Burnley, which is a security accredited facility. It's got some really quite large tools and machines basically, so it's quite adaptable for nuclear purposes. So when it is safe, we're quite keen to open up site tours, but obviously only when the timing's right. So as I say, we've got an aerospace background, so we have been working with various nuclear companies to introduce some modular build techniques which are widely used within aerospace, but less so, but increasingly so with the nuclear. One was a nuclear heat exchanger project that we risk reduced the project basically and created a standard which was used on future projects. We are specialists in lifting and handling as well. So we did a structural stress analysis on a nuclear crane, modified the design and produced a methodology for manufacture. And as I say, we developed a training program to help fill a skills gap in ISO, GPS, BS Quad 8 design and design checking. So we've essentially become an authority in that particular niche. Recently, we've launched something called the Expert Support Service, where we have a network of our specialist affiliates who can support projects on a day or longer across a whole range of different sort of skill sets and disciplines which are listed there. And we're certainly keen to speak to people. We've found this time when, you know, people are home working and largely at home, is working collaboratively with companies. One is Delkia, Dick's on the call here today. They're a systems integrator. And we're working with them basically to identify a larger multidisciplinary.
And that's your 3 minutes, I'm afraid, James.
That's
but
it.
You fit a ton of stuff into that. We've had three 3-minuters with a lot of information. It shows what you can fit in. Really like that cross-sector stuff you were talking about. That's what we need, isn't it? But well done.
Thank
Back
you.
over to you, Andrew.
All right, thank you, Diane. Great. So we're going to go into the networking sessions, and looking at the time, it's 10:50. So I'm going to set that to 10 minutes, and we are going to be in groups of somewhere. It's going to vary between 4 and 6. I've set the groups up. There might be 1 or 2 people that that break off here. So I'm going to start that now, and let's just close that after 10 minutes, and there'll be a countdown timer that comes up with the final 60 seconds. So away to the networking and the breakout rooms. Hope you find that helpful. All right, I think we have probably got everybody back. So thank you. Hope the networking was useful. Because we had so many on today's call, I had to do it automatically. And as I did that, there was a few people that left. So if you ended up in a smaller group than perhaps had been originally set, then my apologies. Obviously, just having large numbers means it does make it difficult to break people into groups manually. So that was fully automated, and obviously we have to take our chances with how the technology and how people can react with that. But hopefully you found it a worthwhile session. Now I'm going to put up the Mentee slide because it is now just gone 11 o'clock, and we were due to finish at 11. So if you can provide some feedback on today's meeting, then that would be really appreciated. You can go to Mentee.com. It's an anonymous feedback site, and just use the code 694224, and that will tag your feedback to this meeting. Just while anybody's doing that, if anybody has any very quick member news or any other business that they wish to share, then please make yourself known in the chat and I can come back to you. Just while you're filling in that Mentee slide, as people are thinking of heading back to work, please do consider looking within the cluster for services or products that you might find useful at this time. We've got a range of professional services within the cluster: Baines Wilson for legal and HR advice, financial advice from Dodd & Co, Armstrong Watson, health and safety advice there as well. And if you're looking for products or facilities to enable people to go back to work safely, furniture, screens, hand dispensers, PPE, signage and safety supplies can also be found within the cluster membership. So please do consider looking to others in the cluster, and we can help to support each other and help everybody to get back on their feet as people start to return to work. So we've got a social impact workshop which is next Wednesday. I see Claire Louise has just posted that in the chat. There is also another event which takes place on Friday, the e-group. There's a 3:30. It's a group for new members. There's a networking session, 3:30 Friday afternoon. And I'm just having a quick look down the chat to see if anyone else has got anything else to share. It doesn't look like it. So, oh, someone's speaking up.
Sorry, Andrew, it's Hazel. Elsa wanted some member news.
Okay, Elsa, yeah, fire away.
Lovely, thank you. It's Elsa Mason here from DMA Safety Management. For those of you who are looking at COVID-19 arrangements for your businesses, we're running, the IOSH branch I'm part of are running a session on Friday afternoon, free of charge. You don't have to be an IOSH member. I haven't got the link here, so I'll get that to Hazel to get it posted up on the, can we get it out to somebody if I send it on to you?
Yeah.
Lovely. So it's question time. You can submit your questions in advance if you want to, and there'll be a panel of people from BAE, Sellafield, and other businesses there to answer those health and safety questions. So if that would help anybody, do please register for that.
All right, thank you, Elsa. Appreciate that. Now, Ivan has had to disappear. He's had an 11 o'clock meeting, so it's over to me to round things off. Thank you again, Emma Jane. Please pass our thanks from the cluster on to Martin for his time to give today's presentation. Clearly, people have found that very useful. Some good feedback coming through in the chat, and hopefully some positive feedback as well in the Mentee tool. So my thanks on behalf of the cluster to Martin at Sellafield, and obviously Emma Jane for helping to facilitate him joining us today. Thank you everybody for your contributions, for joining the networking, and hope you stay safe, stay well, and look forward to seeing you at the next event.